Guys. I am Kendra, founder of the Key Resource, and I'm super excited to be chatting with you guys today about building wealth with real estate investing. So, before I get into all of that, I want to introduce myself. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I am an Aggie. So, I went to North Carolina A&T State University. And so, for any of my Aggies out there, Aggie Pride. I'm a landlord, so I own rental properties in DC and in Maryland, and I currently live in Texas. We just moved to Texas not too long ago, so our rental properties are on the East Coast. We're in Texas, and we're managing them from afar. I'm also a chocoholic. I am addicted to chocolate. Literally cannot go one day without it. And I also love thrift shopping. Like no matter how much wealth I build, no matter how much money I have, I'm always gonna love Goodwill. So that's just a little bit about me. But let's get right into the nitty gritty of this presentation because I know you guys are here to learn. I cannot wait to share with you guys everything that I've learned and things that can help you get started on your journey. So this is a picture of our very first rental property. This is where it all began, you guys. It's so crazy because if I, take you back, 6, 7 years ago, or even before that, I never in a million years thought that I'd be a real estate investor, especially at a young age, especially because I didn't always have good money habits. And I didn't come from a wealthy family. I came from a middle class family. My parents were in the military. The same with my husband. His parents were in the military, middle class family. And honestly, we were kind of just going about life like they tell you to do, right? You go to college. So I went to undergrad, then I went to grad school, then I moved to DC. Um, so I went to undergrad at North Carolina A&T. I actually went to grad school at Purdue University, and then I moved to DC and got a government job. And that's kind of like going along the trajectory that people tell you is the good way to do things, right? Did that, got married, bought a house, and we're like, we've arrived. We've made it. This is it, right? Like now you just work until you're really old and then you live the life of your dreams. That's what I thought we were supposed to do. The problem was I really didn't like my job, but I didn't know any other way. I just, what else am I supposed to do? Like I'm building this career, I got to stick with it, right? So my husband and I played this game one day called Cash Flow. And if you've never played the game before, it's basically like Monopoly, but it's a little different because it really mimics life. Like you have student loans, you have bills, and you have your salary, you might have kids, and you have all these different expenses and things like that. And so you're going around this hamster wheel and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're going around the hamster wheel, but outside of that wheel is your dream life. You've picked, this dream life you want to live, but you can't get there because you're just going around in circles. The only way to win the game and to live your dream life is if you create passive income for yourself. So, passive income is money that you're making while you're sleeping, basically. It's money that you're making when you don't have to exchange time for it. And so in the game, you can invest in stocks. You can have a business. I think you can like even buy gold or something random like that. But you will not win the game if you don't own real estate. And we learned that really quickly in playing the game. And when we walked away from the game that day, it was like a light bulb where it went off where we were like, wait a minute, if this game mimics real life, and you can't win that game without investing in real estate, then in real life, we're losing, right? And so it was just crazy because no one had ever really talked to us about real estate investing. And we knew what it was, but we had never envisioned ourselves doing it. And so that's why I think it's so important, that I teach people now. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I want to empower you guys to unapologetically go after your dreams. And if real estate investing is a way that you can get there, I want to empower you to do that. Like I said, no one had told us like, hey, you can be young and black and own properties, plural, right? And so we played that game, light bulb went off. we need to own rental property. We already owned the house that we lived in, but we're like, we need to own real estate. Real estate can make us money. Our money can make us money. Let's do this. And so we started looking for properties the next day. And about 3 months later, we found this property. We bought it. And there are some things that we learned from it. I'm going to tell you in a few slides, but it just kind of catapulted us, to where we are today. So let me go to this one. I'm going to reiterate what I was saying about getting out of the rat race. And so getting out of the rat race in the game, you're going around this hamster wheel, but in real life, it can mean whatever to anyone. It can mean no longer living paycheck to paycheck, getting out of the bondage of consumer debt, having an ample emergency fund, retiring early, whatever, getting out of the rat race means to you, write that down because that's what you're going to pursue, right? Speaking of retiring early, my husband and I actually were able to retire early about a year and a half ago. So at the age of 32, I officially retired from my government job. And it was like the best day ever. We have been building up to this. We worked so hard for it. And I'm grateful to say that because of our real estate investing, we were able to retire, and now we're living the life of our dreams. Um, and I want to empower you guys to do the same. So like I said, define what your rat race is and define what financial freedom looks like to you, because retiring early may not be your goal. And that's okay, especially in this day and age where we live in this age in social media where I think like full-time entrepreneurship is glorified and quitting your job is like glamorized, right? But you may love your 9 to 5. And if you do, I think that is amazing. Stick with it. Or you may, not want to retire early. That's fine. But just, define what your financial freedom goal is, because I think whether you work a 9 to 5 or not, just being financially free and having multiple streams of income is so important. And we're seeing that now with the way the economy is, the state of our world. We saw it even a year or two ago with the government shutdown, right? You see it when people's incomes might be in jeopardy and things are changing. You want to make sure that you're not only dependent on one source of income. So, all right, define what your rat race is, define what financial freedom and what wealth looks like to you, right? The next thing I want you guys to do, so I'm going to try to lay out some steps for you to take, some action items that you can take to get started, right? And to kind of like break it down, because I think when we talk about real estate investing and wealth building, it can get very, very overwhelming. So you've done the first step, or you're going to do the first step later. You're going to write down what financial freedom looks like to you, right? But then what are your goals? So when it comes to making goals, you can have long-term and short-term goals. So a long-term goal looks something like this, like I want to retire in 3 years, or I want to pay off my student loans in 2 years, or I want to pass down a house to my children. I want my children to go to college without any student loan debt. Those are long-term goals. Short-term goals are the ones that we really, really gotta get clear on and really gotta work towards. So a short-term goal can look like this: I want to make an extra $500 per month with passive income. I want to um, I want to invest and bring in enough money with my investment to pay my student loan payment, right? So once you get clear on those specific short-term goals, it's way easier to kind of back into what you need to do to get there. All right. So we're defining what financial freedom looks like to us. What does wealth look like to you? Because it looks different for everyone. And then what are your goals? What are your long term and short term goals? Right. Very important to define those things. All right, so this is where most people get stuck. It's easy to get out there and say, like, I know I want to make this much money. I know I want to retire. But then all this fear sets in because you hear these horror stories about real estate or investing and things like that. And you're just like, well, what if, right? So let's go through all these different things that you may be scared of. Then I'm going to give you, some practical examples, right? But I want to get over these fears. So the first one is, What if I can't find a renter and I end up missing my mortgage payments? So, this, you guys, is a really valid fear. People are scared that I'm going to buy a property, I'm going to put a tenant in it. Well, my plan is to put a tenant in it. But, like, what if I can't find one? What if the property's empty for a few months? I got to pay this mortgage, right? That's a really good question. So, a few things to combat this fear. When you're investing in real estate, when you plan on getting renters, you want to always make sure that you have money saved up. You need at least 3 to 6 months of savings, right? So, 3 to 6 months of expenses saved before you should buy a property. I always put it like this. If you buy a rental property, can you afford that mortgage payment? If you get a mortgage on it, right? Which most people do, but if you can afford a rental property cash, you go girl. You go girl. So, but let's think about it in the with the idea of a mortgage. If you buy a property that has a mortgage on it, can you afford that mortgage payment for at least 3 months, even if there's no renter? Can you afford it on your own? If not, you need to wait until you have more money saved up. The second thing to combat that fear, if you can't find a renter, is that you always have to be able to pivot. So, say you put it out there on Zillow and you're looking for a renter, no, you're not getting any bites. You can change the price, right? That's one thing. But what if that doesn't even work? You can pivot. So start thinking about, maybe putting it on Airbnb, maybe putting it on sites like Peerspace, where you can rent it out for photo shoots. There are so many ways to make rental income that if one way doesn't work out, there's always different ways to pivot. The second fear is I'm afraid I'll get terrible tenants that will ruin my place and cost me money. Listen, bad tenants do exist, right? Yes, I'm not going to sugarcoat things and say that everything is always peachy keen and every tenant's going to be great. Yeah, there are some horror stories, but you can screen your tenants. Um, and the thing is, think about it like this. So before I was a homeowner, I was a renter. I was somebody's tenant. And I was never a bad tenant. I never ruined anyone's place. I always returned it just as I found it. You know, I did all the things I was supposed to do. And if you think about it, if you're renting right now, you're probably a good tenant too. So there are people out there just like you, just like me, who are looking for places to live. So get that horror story out of your mind and think about the fact that, you know what? There's somebody out there just like me looking for a place to live who's going to respect my place and I can find them. The third fear is what if I get too many maintenance issues and I lose a lot of money? Great question. So that goes back to savings, right? Savings is very important because things do pop up. You can get a home warranty, which definitely do some research on that and how those work, but that's a great tool you can use. Another thing to combat that fear is making sure that you really know what you're getting into when you buy a property. And that's where getting the property inspected comes in. And that's something that is part of the home buying process. You're going to get an inspection, so you'll know upfront what the issues with the house are, right? All right. So the next fear is what happens if I get in over my head and lose money? And I just want to pause here and say, do you realize that like literally all of these fears are connected to money? The biggest fear in real estate investing is losing money. So, all right, let me go back to this one. What if I get in over my head? You guys, this is where mentorship and preparation comes in. And the fact that you're listening to this right now, you're already starting out better than I did because I didn't have this when I started. My husband and I got into real estate investing. We jumped into it super random. We didn't have any courses, no webinars, no summits. There was nothing like this. Like 6 or 7 years ago, people weren't on the internet putting on summits and sharing information. And so it was very hard to we had to kind of dig and pull and figure it out and stumble and fall and make mistakes. And so you're already starting out better than we did. And so just take comfort in that. But you definitely want to educate yourself and you definitely want to prepare and learn all you can, but don't get stuck there. You have to take action. So then the last one is well, what if I fail? Like, what if I get out there and buy that property and it's just like the wrong move, or it doesn't work out? Personally, I'm the kind of person who's like, but like, what if I don't even try? Right. So I'd rather try and fail than always wonder what if. And when it comes to building wealth, especially building wealth from the ground up, like I was, you have to take risk. Um, if you think about it right now, if you're not investing at all, if your money is literally just playing it safe and sitting in a savings account, you're really not making any money at all. Like it's safe. It's in a savings account. It's very, very safe there. There's no risk at all. But if you want that reward and if you want to see, big things happen, you're going to have to jump out there and take a risk and bet on yourself. And that's just how I operate. I'm like, I'm going to bet on myself and it's going to be okay. So those are just some fears that I hear about all the time. I kind of wanted to go over those with you guys. But now you're thinking, all right, girl, I've gotten over these fears. I got my goals down, but how am I going to afford this? Like, how am I going to afford this? So I wanted to share this screen right here, just so you guys can see it, and you can take a picture, you can write it down. You guys, you have this presentation, video to watch, so you may want to come back to this and research these different ways. But when it comes to financing, I just want to throw this out there, and I'm not going to delve too deep into it. But when it comes to financing real estate purchases, there are so many different ways. Here are 5 ways that you can finance buying a property. Cash, seller financing, getting a mortgage, which is what most people do. That's kind of the common way, and then hard money loans and capital partnerships, which is basically like teaming up with people. Definitely look into these. I have used mortgages and I've used cash, and I have investor friends who have used all of these options. They're all great options. So let's get into some examples. So let's get into the numbers of this, because it's still um, can be a little overwhelming, right? So when you think about buying real estate, the biggest hurdle is the down payment, y'all. So let's think about this. When you're buying a property that you are not going to live in, right? So you think about buying a house, usually you're buying a house for yourself, right? You're going to live in, but when you're buying a rental property that you're not going to live in and you're getting a mortgage on that property, you immediately have to put down anywhere from 20 to 25% for a down payment. On the flip side of that, if you were to buy a house that you live in, the down payment is so much lower. So when you're buying a rental property, off the bat, you got to come up with 25% of that purchase price as a down payment. If you do the math really quickly and look at the home prices in your area, that 25% could easily be 40, 50, 60, $70,000 or more. And it's like, who has that much money just lying around? Um, like seriously. And if you had that much money lying around, you wouldn't even need to be like, you probably not building wealth from the ground up if you just have that much money to throw around, right? And so for people who are just getting started, this is a huge hurdle that keeps a lot of people from investing in real estate. So one of the ways to get over that hurdle is a concept that I want to share with you right now. That's my favorite real estate investing method for beginners, and it's called house hacking. So house hacking, I know it sounds a little shifty because the word hacking, but it is completely legal. The reason it's called, well, let's go with this. House hacking is a great way to get your first rental property without the high down payment. The reason it's called house hacking is because it's basically a way to get a rental property and a place for yourself to live at the same time. Because what you're doing is you're buying a multi-unit property, you're living in one unit and you're renting out the other units. So you're buying a property that has more than one apartment in it. You live in one and you rent out the other units. What this does, first of all, it's great for so many reasons. But what this does is because you live in the property, the bank that you're getting that mortgage with immediately allows you to get a lower down payment. They're like, oh, you're going to live there? Forget that 25%, girl. You can put 3% down. You can put 3.5% down. You can put 5%, 10%, depending on the type of loan you get. And I'll get into that in a second. But that's why house hacking is so great. But also because if you think about it, let's think about this. If you're renting right now and you're paying $1,200 a month to rent, if you were to house hack, you're no longer paying rent. You're living in this multi-unit building. Hopefully, the other units in that building, the rent that's coming in is going to cover that mortgage of that building, right? So you're basically living there for free. So even if you were to break even if the rent you have coming in from those other units in your building are just barely covering the mortgage, you're no longer paying rent. That $1,200 a month you're paying in rent right now, you can pocket that, you can save it, you can invest it. And so house hacking is great because it allows you to get a lower down payment. It also allows you to live for free. You're living in a building that your tenants are paying for. And you guys, I know you might be thinking, girl, where I live, there's not a lot of multi units, or I don't even want to live in a multi unit building. That lifestyle's not for me. I need more space. That's fine. There is a hack to the hack. So, a lot of coaching clients that I have will buy, like for instance, out here in Texas, there are like single family homes with guest houses in the back, right? So I have coaching clients who have done that. I have coaching clients in Florida who have bought houses with guest houses in the back, or people in DC and Maryland who have purchased houses with basement apartments, right? And so there are different ways to house hack, but buying a multi-unit is the most common way. And so that's usually the example I go with. But the basis of it is basically getting your living expenses covered by a tenant. And so I wanted to share that with you guys because many of you out there may be like, well, how am I going to get into the game? How can I get started? And even if you already own a home, even if you already own a rental property and you're listening to this, you can still house hack. You can still house hack. It's still a great strategy to use. So I'm going to give y'all this example real quick because I want y'all to see the numbers on this. Do you remember the very first slide I showed you? The very first property my husband and I bought, it was a duplex. We still own it. The price was $228,000. The down payment was $57,000. That is a lot of money that we really didn't have. We ended up borrowing that money from our retirement accounts to pay for this, which is a kind of a controversial way to do things. Like there are some financial gurus who will say, "Oh, I would never do that." For us, it worked out beautifully. I would definitely suggest to any of you who consider borrowing from your retirement to invest in anything that you consult with a financial advisor. But basically, the way that it worked was we were borrowing money from ourselves and then paying ourselves back with interest. But like I said, it's all a numbers game. Please do your due diligence. So let's get back to this example. Without house hacking, we purchased this duplex, which is a 2-unit building, right? We had to put $57,000 down because we didn't live in it. We had our own house and then we bought this. We didn't even know about house hacking. And honestly, even if we would have known about it, I probably wouldn't have wanted to do it because I really wasn't in that wealth building mindset where I was willing to sacrifice. I wasn't willing to downsize my space at the time. We did end up house hacking on the next property. And then I was like, you know what, Kendra, you got to make some sacrifices here. So anyway, if we would have house hacked this duplex, instead of putting $57,000 down, we could have put as little as $8,000 down. That's an almost $50,000 mistake that we made just by not knowing. And that's why I'm so, like I said, passionate about sharing what I know, because I don't want you guys to make the same mistakes. At least you have the knowledge if you want to use this method. Um, the really cool thing about house hacking too is if you're a first time home buyer, you literally can get down payment grants and down payment assistance that could take that $8,000 down payment to zero. Yes, literally, there are grants and programs out there that will lower or eliminate your down payment as long as you're living in the property and as long as you're a first time home buyer. So if you guys are interested, I do have lists for about 23 different states that show you, the down payment grants in those states. And so you guys can find me. I'll share my Instagram and my website at the end of this, and you guys can find me there and get the information. But just look at this difference right here. That's why I want to share this with y'all about house hacking, if any of you are interested, because it's a great, great strategy. So let's just go over this really, really quickly. I really enjoy sharing this with you guys. Here is what you need to do to get started today. First, you're going to map out your goals. Why do you want to invest in real estate? Don't invest in real estate because you saw me on Instagram investing in real estate. Invest in real estate because it's something that's going to get you to your goals and it's something that you really want to do. Pick a method. So when it comes to real estate, there are so many ways to do it, so many ways to finance it. I showed you guys that in the other slide, but there's also so many ways to really get into it. Like, you don't have to be a landlord if you don't want to. That's what I've chosen to do. But there's so many other methods out there, you guys. That's what I love about real estate. It's so versatile. And then lastly, learn from others. Like what you're doing right now, learning from me, this is a great start. You're already starting out better than I did 6 or 7 years ago. And I was able to retire at 32 years old. So just imagine what you can do. Map out your goals, pick a method, learn from others, and then take action. Don't get stuck in the learning phase. Action is going to be your best teacher. Don't get analysis paralysis. And I want to leave you with these words. One, you are worthy of wealth. You are worthy of wealth. And abundance is all around you, right? And so I want you guys to remember those things. The world is yours, like this sign here says. And I just thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for taking this journey with me. If you want to find more information about my journey and see the resources that I have, you can find me on Instagram at the key resource, and you can find me at thekeyresource.com. So yeah, if you like this presentation, definitely DM me on Instagram, give me a shout out. I had so much fun chatting with you guys. So until next time, see you later.